All right, so in this section, we're going to talk about the things that you need to know to trade the futures market. Okay, so this is not a long list. There's a few things that you absolutely need to know. This is not everything about the futures market. These are just the things that you need to be aware of to trade the futures market effectively. Okay, so a majority of the futures market is open 5 days a week, 23 hours a day. All right, that's Sunday to Friday. So it opens typically at Sunday at 6 p.m. and it closes for the weekend on Friday at 5 p.m. And throughout the week, it closes for 1 hour every day from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. All right, so those are your normal trading hours. And most of the products that you're going to trade in the futures market are going to be tradable within that same time frame. So that's all you really need to know about the exchange hours. All right, so let's dive a little deeper into these exchanges. So there's basically 4 exchanges within the futures market. 3 of these you're going to deal with the most, which is the Globex or CME, and the NYMEX and the COMEX. All right, so out of these 3, the one that most people deal with, where the most popular futures contracts are, is the CME Globex. And you will see this, depending on the broker or the data service provider, you'll see this as either just CME, you'll see it as CME Globex, or you'll just see it as Globex. But this is the exchange that houses the most popular futures contract, which is the ES and the NQ. There's also gold futures. You're going to get that in the COMEX. And then you have the CL or the crude oil futures, which is going to be in the NYMEX for your energies, right? All right, so in this slide, you can see I have a list of what I found to be like the most popular futures contracts. Out of this list, you don't really need to trade them all. I would not recommend trading them all. You don't even need to have them all on your watch list. All you need to do is you can pick 2 or 3. You can pick 1 or to 3 of them and just trade those. Okay, so the one that we're going to talk about in this course is NQ. The other most popular one is ES, and there's also GC and CL. Those are also popular ones. So most of these products, they also have micros and smalls, which allows you to maximize your trading capital. And it allows you to trade with the futures contracts with more flexibility. It allows you to actually take on less risk. Now, in addition to those, they continue to make new products for the futures market. One of those being the Forex exchange, which was released recently. Now, all of that is beyond the scope of this course. I'm not going to go into detail about all of that. I'm just making you aware of it. So if you're interested, you can go ahead and do more research. Okay. So that takes us to the next thing that we need to know, which is ticks and points. Now, if you're not familiar with these terms, you do know what they are. You have heard them before, just in different words. Okay. So it's just that the overall financial market doesn't really use this as frequently anymore as what they use now, which is dollars and cents or dollars and pennies. And so to explain this, let's just use the stock Apple as an example. And for simplicity's sake, let's just say Apple is currently trading at $100. So when the price of Apple moves 1 cent, that it moved 1 tick, okay? Or if it moved $1, then it moved 1 point. So ticks and points are just synonymous with cent and dollars, okay? So you'll hear points a lot. I have heard points being used a lot with people talking about the stocks. They'll say whatever stock moved 100 points, which means it moved $100 or however much it moved. So it's really simple. That's all you need to know about the terminology. But where it gets a little bit different from stocks is the tick value, right? Or the point value, okay? So if you can understand the tick value, you understand the point value, because the tick value is just a fraction of the point value. All right, so to illustrate this, just to make this simple, I'm just going to take this portion out of the article that I wrote about the futures market on mv3trader.com. All right, so a 1 tick increment of NASDAQ futures NQ is 0.25. A point increment is pretty much the same as the dollar amount of a stock incrementing by the whole number. So since NQ was 0.25 and the point is 1, there are 4 ticks and 1 point for NQ. All right. Now let's go ahead and talk about, since we understand the increment, now let's go ahead and talk about the value of that increment. So since the increment is 0.25, that value of that 1 tick is $5 for NQ. Okay. This is for NQ. Now the value of a point, since there are 4 ticks within a point for NQ, then the value of 1 point is $20, right? So that's 4 times 5 equals 20. Now, if this is confusing, don't worry about it. It'll start making sense once we start putting we start going hands-on with trading the NASDAQ futures. but this is just an overview to help you understand how, the terminology and how the increments and the values for the futures work. And it's different for each product. Okay, so where NQ has a tick value of $5, it's different for ES. ES has a tick value of $12.50. All right, so you don't necessarily have to remember this by memory. You just got to know what you trade. Okay, so I know NQ really well. I know enough about ES and GC and CL because I traded those before. But if this is also why you only really need to focus on one product or one contract, and you can just trade that and you know it really well, and you can do perfectly fine with that one thing. Okay, so that's the tick and the points, as well as the increment and the value. Now the last thing that you need to know to trade the futures market is the contract expiration. Okay, and this is really simple. All you got to do is go to cmegroup.com or barchart.com, and you'll see when the current contract expires. And the key thing to know about this is the contract months are represented by a letter. Okay, so you can see in the screenshot here the letter correlation to the month, and this is going to be across the board for all futures, right? So the way that you'll see the futures contract symbol listed is you'll see the first 2 to 3 letters will be the futures product. The next letter should be your month letter, and then after that you'll have the year. So it's going to vary based on the data provider. All right, so for example, we're looking at NQ. Now the way this breaks down, you have NQ, which is the product, the Nasdaq futures, and then you have U, which is the contract month, meaning that this contract expires in September, and then you have the year, abbreviated in 21 for 2021. So we can look at this and see that NQ futures is going to expire in September of 2021. So the next thing that you need to understand about this is if you can trade this or not. All you got to do is go to barchart.com or cmegroup.com, and you just go and look up the contract month, and you see where all the volume is. That's really all you need. You're just looking for liquidity, right? And wherever the most volume is, that's the contract month that you're going to trade. Okay. All right. So the last thing we need to know about the futures market is the margin requirements. So the margin requirements, all this does is tell you how much money you need to have in your account to be able to trade whatever product that you're trying to trade. Now the margin requirement is going to vary from product to product. So there's 2 margin requirements that you got to be aware of. One is the intraday margin requirement, or the day trading margin requirement, and the next one is the maintenance requirement, which is if you're going to hold the trade overnight. Okay, so if you're only trading these intraday, you're only day trading these whatever product that you choose to trade, all you have to worry about is the day trading margin requirement. Okay, if you're going to hold the position overnight, you need to be aware of and make sure you meet the requirements for the maintenance requirement. Okay, so that's all you really need to know to trade the futures market effectively. If you want to know more beyond that, all you got to do is go to the article that I mentioned before on nv3trader.com that I wrote about the futures market, and there's some resources there, and there's some more information there that you can know more about the futures market, and you can geek out on the futures market all you want to. Okay, so in the next section we're going to talk about why you may want to trade the futures market.